Thanks for tuning back into the No Referees podcast, our new series called Legendary Legends. The very first legend we sat down with has won a handful of NBA championships, actually almost two handfuls. He won championships on 3 different teams, and it was really, really cool to sit down and kind of chop it up with him. Robert Horry, Big Shot Bob, as you know. In the first part of this series, we spoke about the current climate in America with COVID and with social injustice. We talked about him growing up in the deep South in Alabama and what that looked like, different type of prejudice instances and issues he faced growing up in the deep South. We also talked about when he was in his prime in the NBA playing, that when he had people that would come up to him, ask for autographs, how he handled some of those situations, and a couple cool fun stories. Also in this interview, my special guest co-host is Chris White. He was actually my supervisor when I was an intern with the San Antonio Spurs. He was the assistant strength coach. So he actually facilitated this interview with Robert Horry because he spent so many days, hours, and times with Robert during the 2 NBA championships. So please enjoy this interview. Be great. Thank you. Welcome back to No Referees Podcast, alongside our special guest co-host, Chris White. I'm your host, Evarist, bringing you one of one series, Legendary Legend series, where we have icons of the game to join the show to give us a sneak peek behind the curtain on everyday grind to sustain greatness. Our first guest of the Legendary Legend series really needs no introduction. He's a 7-time NBA champion. He's one of only 2 players in NBA history to win an NBA championship with 3 teams. Has one of the most iconic shooting forms you ever seen in your life. You can find him on Twitter at RK Roll Tide's finest, Mr. Robert Horry. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm good, man. You know, I appreciate you saying Roll Tide's finest because I always feel that way.
This is crazy that we got this interview set up today because I know you done heard it 15 million times, but this song is a part of my playlist. So I got to make sure I play it one time. Let me get it cracking because here we go. Hey. Hey. Top that hey. Solid. Hey. 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 White Jordans. Hey. Hey. That's right hand, Robert Horry. Hey. Hey, Rob, whenever you hear a song like that, they give you a shout out, what do you think when you hear something like that?
Man, I always get a kick out of it when I hear my names and songs. From Travis Scott to Kevin Gates. I think the funniest thing ever was I rolled up to a stop sign and a guy was playing a song. It was Kevin Gates' song. And as soon as he said Robert Horry, he looked over and looked at me and gave me one of those look like. And then the light turned green. I drove off. And you could see he was like, is that Robert Horry? So it's always funny to hear my names and songs. So it's a cool thing.
Do you ever know?
Have arrived.
Do you ever know that those songs are going to come out? Do you ever know those songs are going to come out before they come out? Did they ever hit you up and let you know?
No, I don't. I've never. The crazy part is forever and ever, everybody was from H-Town to Cali like Robert Horry or Zebo, and that's what everybody was knowing me for from that song. The next thing you know, you got all these other cats, Lil Wayne, and all these iconic rappers. When if you're an iconic rapper and you know my name and you put me in the song, who cares about what else is going on?
That's cool, man. Yeah, like for the last 2 or 3 years, that song's been on my playlist. And when this guy set up, I was like, man, I gotta play my song.
Crazy, but I love future, something about future music. Even though I'm not in this song, it just makes you want to get up and as old folks would say, cut a step.
We just want to just give you some praise. On the No Referees Podcast, one of the very first things we ask all our guests that comes on, we're no rules, no text, no whistles. So this is basically unpenalized. And so we just want to tell our fans and our listeners out there who's a fan of Robert Horry, back in the day, and growing up in Alabama, Roll Tide, or your first couple years in the NBA, what was the very first time you got teched up or the very first time you got into it a referee?
Well, I going to Alabama, I got a lot of texts, but none from refs, from getting into it with other players. I think the first time I got a tech was from Hugh Hollins when I got into the NBA. It's weird because I remember that because it was like $1,000 gone out the window. Like, I'm like, no, I need my money, you know? And like, and it was, you look at him and after a while, you like, you know what? You're going to take me up regardless. So I'm just going to go at you. I'm going to get my money's worth. You're going to hit me for 1,000. I'm going to get my money's worth.
What's one of your teammates that you saw that went over the line? Like, damn, dude, like you calm down.
It's weird. I played with Vernon Maxwell. I played with a lot of controversial players. I don't think in my mind nobody has ever gone over the line. I think the only time in my eyes is ever went over the line was in reverse when one of the refs went over the line. I think C. White was there with me when this happened. When
Alice.
when Tim got thrown out of the game for laughing, and it was just one of the things. It looked like at first I thought he was talking to me because I was sitting next to Tim, because the calls in this game, I never want to say anything bad about the refs, but these calls were just horrendous. I mean, they were awful, and it was so bad we were laughing about him on the bench, and then he just tossed Tim for laughing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, everybody. I'm just looking like, who's he talking to? Yeah. And then the reaction on y'all's face was like, is he talking to me? And then you looked at Tim, and Tim pointed like, was he talking to me? And just busted out laughing. So I was like, crazy.
No, I'm talking to you. I'm so sick of your BBB. Get up. Next thing you know, Tim was walking to the locker room. We like, wow, he has really lost it. He must have had a bad day at the office, or his wife is cheating on him, or his dog got ran over, or something. He was having a bad day.
So we're gonna talk about some of your first couple years in the league, but I just want to ask you a question just about Alabama. Just being a guy from Alabama, growing up in the deep South, these times, these days, with a lot of things going on in our country. I'm from Texas, C. White's from Texas, but being a guy from Texas in the South is a lot different from growing up in Alabama in the South. So I just want you to give us some insight, some background of what it was like to grow up in that state, and some of the stuff that you probably faced growing up as an athlete, and some of the stuff you're seeing today with these current events.
With all the social injustice going on in this world, and growing up in Alabama, you got an eyeful. You pulling down the wrong street, and then you run up on a Klan meeting, and you hope to God that you get out of there. Streets you couldn't walk down because of the color of your skin, and people calling you the N-word. And it was weird because growing up, my favorite sport was baseball. And this is a funny story. We had on our all-star team, we were only allowed 3 blacks, and it wasn't like it was that unwritten rule that everybody knew. But my team was all black, and we only had one guy to make it off the team, and that was the coach's son. And I didn't make it, and I led the league in home runs. And so what they used to do was they would take the all-star team and play the team that won it that year, and we won it. And so the coach was like, all right, who's going to pitch? I said, I'm pitching. I don't care what we do. To make a long story short, we ended up beating the all-star team 32-6. And you should have seen how upset the people in the crowd. Certain people were upset in the crowd. And I remember my mom and my whole section, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you want to keep my son off the all-star team? Yeah, Rob, strike him out. It was just funny. And it was just one of those things where it's the first time you ever, as a kid, it hits you in your heart. It makes you so upset that you put all your energy and effort to show people up. I said, okay, I'm going to show you. You don't want to put me on the all-star team because of the color of my skin. I'm going to make you regret not having me on that team. And after we beat the brakes off them, they never let the winning team play the all-star team to get them ready again because of that moment. And even though there's a moment in history that won't be written down anywhere, but in my mind, it was my way to, sort of say fight the power. But it was a lot of things like that happened to me growing up, walking into places and people ignoring you, not getting served. I mean, even when I finally made it to the NBA, I walked in the car dealership and all these people walking past me. And then finally the guy in the back comes out and says, can I help you? I said, not anymore. I was getting ready to buy a car. And as I was walking out, this black guy was coming in from lunch. He says, Robert Horry, hey, what you doing? I said, well, I was going to buy a car, but nobody offered. He said, man, give me a chance. So I said, you better be glad you're a brother. And so I bought a car from him, and I looked at everybody, and I kind of gave us the finger like, screw you. I can, because people just judge you by the color of skin. had no idea who I was, what I was doing, or what I could provide for anybody. But they judge you. They judge you by the color of your skin, and it's wrong. And I hate that it happens that way.
I know my stepfather being from Tuskegee. I heard I heard a lot of his stories and stuff like that, and it's hard to think about that stuff, but that stuff is really out there, and it still goes on to this day.
Mm-hmm. And it's so. I took my wife, who's Mexican, and my son, who's mixed, to Alabama. They were like, "Oh yeah, it's not that bad. It's not that bad." I'm like, "This is just 2 years ago," and you taking us like, "Wow, you can just feel it sometimes." I said, "Yeah, this is I hate that I don't come home and see my parents as much as I should, my family, but it's just I can't deal with the side eye, the racism, and the things of that nature. How people treat you, but it's home, and my mom is there, my family's there, so you have to put up with it. But I know some of the things when you kind of walk around and says, hey, I got a lawyer, I got money to pay for him. Don't try me.
So Rob, just staying right there, I know a couple of days ago or recently we saw NFL Drew Brees came out and said some comments about the flag, disrespecting, and as your father's military, CY has military in his family. My brother's a current active duty Air Force, 20 years at San Antonio. And a lot of people have come out and said it's not about the flag, it's not about that situation. And again, being from the South and being such a prominent figure in the sports world, what's your take on that?
I feel like Drew Brees didn't get it. A lot of people probably get mad at me for that. I understand where he's coming from, but you have to understand the people who are around you, and you got to be educated. And I understand what he's saying, where he's coming from, but he didn't quite understand where we're coming from. And it's so funny how people got so mad at him, meaning Cap, of him kneeling to bring a peaceful protest, but people won't get mad at these militias carrying these racist flags, walking down the middle of the street with guns. And even though it's a peaceful protest, it can incite violence due to the guns being visible, the words that are coming out of their mouth. And this is a guy who's just saying, hey, I'm on a platform. I'm going to do a peaceful demonstration. My dad served in the military for 30 years. We had that conversation about, it's weird how, everybody wants to say, well, my dad served in the military. This person, I said, yeah, go ask anybody that's black. Go ask anybody who's black. Are they upset at what Cap's doing? Are they upset that he's using this platform as a way of saying, look at what's happening to society. Look at what's happening to, people of color. Look at what's happening to, any race that's a minority. So hey, I understand where Drew is where he's trying to come from, but I don't think he really fully understands where we're coming from, which takes precedent of what he's trying to talk about.
Do you think that it's athletes, I don't want to say job, but it's athletes' place, like people like LeBron coming out, prominent figures in our sports world to come out and say something, or do you think it should be somebody else to come out and have these kind of takes?
It's great for athletes and entertainers and anybody who has a following to come out and let them know that they care. And it's a slippery slope when it comes to athletes, because sometimes you can get so emotional and then the wrong thing can come out and now you can look bad. So you don't have to come in with a cool head and be able to, speak your mind like an Obama or like an MLK or Thurgood Marshall. You got to be able to come across with the intellectual look, so people look and say, okay, I can understand him, I can follow him. Not somebody who just come out and fight the power, do this, do that. You can't come out all militant like that. So, and I think it's not just, people who have a platform. It's the person that's sitting at home watching this on TV, explaining it to that child and let them understand, like, don't hate a person for the color of their skin. Don't hate a person, race, religion, or sex. Don't hate them for that. Love a person until they do wrong to give you a reason to hate them. But other than that, love them, because you never know when you might need that person to lift you up or save you. Because there's so many opportunities where, cops come up on a situation where a lady's getting raped, a lady's getting hijacked, a man's getting raped, man, whoever it is, and they help them. And so you can't say, okay, these few cops did something bad. Now these cops are trying to help me. Do I refuse his help? No, because that was just a couple bad apples in the bunch. And I hope people understand that, and people won't just, I got a lot of good friends that are cops that are black. And I'm not saying that because they're black. I got some friends that are white that are cops too. I want them to be safe because at the end of the day, they do help protect us.
Let me take a time out to tell you about my friends over at Soul Lounge, Houston's premier boutique for the latest fashions. Chinatown Market? Check. BBC? You know they got all that. You know Adidas? Man, they got all of that stuff too. The swag, the footwear, Yeezys, man, they got everything. No Referees Podcast and Soul Lounge has partnered up to bring you a special offer for listening to this episode. Go online to soulloungehtx.com and enter promo code No Rules to get 20% off your entire purchase. That's No Rules, all one word, all caps. Soul Lounge, live what you love.
That's one of the hardest jobs out here in the United States now, law enforcement. But like you said, one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. And right now, we're just seeing a lot of these bad apples come to light, with technology and the way things are. And they're doing everything now because they know at times they can get away with stuff. Yeah. And until we continue to speak up and do what we got to do as a race, things aren't going to change. And hopefully now that everybody's awake, they stay woke and continue to keep the light on, because nobody wants to be in the dark.
My biggest fear is that this light is gonna, burn out, and I hope it doesn't burn out, because you don't want Floyd's death or any of these other people who've not been mentioned as much as Floyd, who died at the hands of a bad cop. I don't want this light shine. Okay, we talk about it for a month, we talk about it for 2 months, and all of a sudden it's back in the back of the closet like a toy you don't want to play with, because this has been going on for years. People push it to the side when it's not a popular thing to do. For us, this has always been a popular thing to do, is to step up and talk about the injustice that we receive every day in the racism. So I just hope it just, it's because it's a pretty new shiny toy. Everybody's going to talk about it. I want it to be talked about at all time, like sports are talked about all the time, like, legends are talked about forever. This should always be talked about.
Rob, I want to ask you a quick question. Myself, I'm a father of a 7-year-old son. C. White is a father of men as well. You're a father of men as well. Just kind of give some insight on just what, the conversation about how they can, in the locker room with their, friends or teammates that are different colors, and how they should move through the world and things like that.
I tell them to educate themselves, first of all. Be smart, try to spread that education. Don't force feed someone with it. Just let them know, hey, this is what's going on in my world. You don't have to worry about, going to a store. I remember I was at Tears one time where my son, who plays football in high school, they were all at their little meeting spot, a little pizza place, right? And it was a cop in there eating, and the guy goes over and says, "Oh, that kid over there didn't pay." And next thing I know, he goes at my son because he's the biggest and the baddest kid. So he tried to, what you do is you take out the alpha and everybody fall in line. He goes at my son, and my son looks like, "I paid." I said, "I got my receipt. I don't care." That he just went at him. Then next thing you know, you pull up, your son is in handcuffs, and you got this cop going all cuckoo on him. Like, I'm like, wow. I'm like, and you can't do that because he's armed, you're not. So you have to say, okay, calm down, be patient, think through the situation, and understand that, he has a way of taking violence to another level, meaning death. And so you just have to sometimes, talk it out and just be peaceful and understand, this is, people might take this wrong. Do as the cop says. And then I told him, and I hate to say that, I said, dude, we know enough people. We got enough money where we can figure this out in the stretch. We can sue some people and we can get some justice for you. Because it's just hard to go up against a cop when he has a gun, a baton, a taser, mace, so many things to help you. And all you got is, right hand, left hand.
Speaking of people attacking your kids and stuff, several years ago, you had a heckler at a basketball tournament, heckling you and heckling your kids. And this dude, he looked probably about 6 foot, 6'1", came up and pushed you. He was 6'5", yeah. He came up and shoved you in the chest. And the next thing you know, I ain't never seen Robert Horry throw some haymakers, but I saw those haymakers being thrown. Give us some insight on that.
It was so funny, man. It's amazing what heat can do to you. Hot day in Cali, and we watched the game. The guy was just talking trash, and then he just came and stood like right in front of me. I said, dude, why don't you move out the way? And then he looked at me and was like, F you, and then he pushed me in my chest. And I was going to let it slide, but, then he started pulling off his backpack. If you in a situation like that, I don't know if he's going in his backpack or he can do some things. To me, it's time to, protect yourself. And so I literally, it was weird. It was so weird. I had a moment where I could have just, I remember like it was like yesterday, his face was right in front of my fist and I was about to punch him. And I told myself, don't do it. It's not worth it. And I just walked away. I apologized to my kids for me losing my cool. And I said, go out there and kick their butts. And they won that game. But, for me, it was a learning moment for me and also a teaching moment for my son. I said, no matter what, he didn't cause any harm to me. I should have just, called security because of who I am. If I just been some dude without a name to protect, me and him probably fighting for days or something would have happened. But I told him, when you're in a position where you have when you have a name you have to protect, you have to sometimes overcome your manly instincts or your and want to fight and then just walk away. You have to be a bigger man sometimes.
Is that hard because you have that name recognition and people know you and people will try to test you, and versus if you're just myself or C. White, we can get into it, people, but people like yourself have to worry about lawsuits and things of that nature. Is that hard?
It's hard, but you learn that because sometimes you think about your name, your reputation, what's going to happen after this, and but I think sometimes you lose your cool, but you have to. I have been blessed that the people I ever hung out with, they always in a situation like that, they take over it for me. I usually walk away, or I've had situations where people don't even know me, and they're like, Rob, you can't handle this. Let us handle it for you. I've been very fortunate. I know a lot of the guys don't have that, but I've been very fortunate, like I said, to be able to walk away from situations or have people take care of situations for me, or just people to like either escort that person out or escort me out.
I know many times going out to eat with you and some of the fellas, something, and it's usually the guys who are mad when they don't get autographs signed.
Yeah.
Male groupies. And I remember one instance, we're out to dinner and we're eating, and a dude came over and was asking for an autograph, and I said, "Can you let us eat? We're trying to chill." And he got all attitude. And I remember you told me, "Calm down, don't worry about it, just calm down, calm down." But yeah, I understand that wholeheartedly because my thing was, me and you were out to eat, something happens, they're gonna come at me. I'm like, shit, I don't make that much money. So let me take care of my money maker because shit, as long as y'all are out there playing, I had a job.
Exactly. It's such a funny thing where people they want to. I remember one incident where this young lady comes over to me and asks me for an autograph, and I was like, I don't have a pen. Her boyfriend, you can see her boyfriend clearly say, "Did you get an autograph?" She says, "No," and all of a sudden he just starts yelling from across the bar, "You ain't shit. The F you, Robert Horry." And everybody's looking at me like, "What you gonna do about that?" So I walked over to him and I put my finger in his face because you could tell that I was like this. I said, "Ask your girlfriend." I sat and have a pen, and she had, and he looked and he's like, it was one of those things where he caught me at the wrong moment, and it was like, and he just came at me for no reason because he thought I told his girlfriend no when I said I don't have a pen. And she came back empty-handed. It's like, you do calm down. It's crazy situations out there. So it's times that you just have to just shake your head and laugh at them and say this person is ignorant, and you walk away.
That's funny, a crazy autograph story. When I was in my 2 seasons with working with C. White and working with the Spurs, I had a lady come up to me one time, like at halftime, we come back onto the court, and like literally at halftime, she walked up and was like, "Can you have some?" I think it was like Manu sign my hat. I'm like, "Lady, it's like halftime, like what?" And then I think because I feel like she felt like she was entitled because she sat courtside and she paid X amount of dollars for the tickets or whatever. I just want to look at it like you want to say something like, I just told her, ma'am, now at the time, maybe after the game or something like that, or maybe catch me before the game, next game, and I can see what I can do. But you just get crazy stories. I mean, I'm sure Chris White has a bunch of crazy stories. People asking him for stuff. When you're a coach behind the scenes, everybody think that you can just, get unlimited stuff signed and things of that nature. But that's not the case.
I know. You have to tell them, like, my favorite line is when I always just tell them, like, I'm not allowed to do that. I could lose my job. That's the favorite thing I tell them. Just tell them you lose your job if you got to do it. Just tell them that.
What was one of the craziest autograph stories or things you heard, or what's one of the craziest parts of the body you had to sign, or crazy thing you had to sign?
I think the craziest story was back in '94. We had just came back from New York playing in the final. We had just I think the series we were down in the series 3-2, and we got back, and all these fans were at the airport, and they used to where we had to park is anybody could come up, so they had to escort us out. And this girl, like ran in front of Vernon's. I don't know if it was Vernon or Kenny. It was one of the guards' car, Mario or Sam, ran in front of the car and kind of got bumped. And they was like, Claire was like, oh crap. She said, no, it's so fine. I just wanted to come over and give you a hug. And then she pulls out her breast and said, can you sign my, breast right here? And I was like, he says, I had to. I had bumped it with my car, so I had to sign the autograph. So, you got crazy things like that happen, but it only happens when you make it to the finals. That's the crazy thing. If you don't make it to the finals, fans not going to do crazy stuff or meet you at the airport or anything like that. Well, unless you're in San Antonio, because that's all they got. They always at the airport.
Thanks for sitting down and joining us for part 1 of the Legendary Legend series featuring Robert Horry. It was cool to get some inside stories from Robert on his upbringing in Alabama, how he dealt with those social injustice issues back in the day and still today going on currently. It was also cool to talk to Rob about some of the songs he's been featured in hip-hop wise over the years, from Lil Wayne to Future to Travis Scott. Please stay tuned to part 2 of the Legendary Legend series, where Robert talks about his time with the Rockets, Lakers, Spurs, and some of the game-winning shots that you know him from. Peace. Thanks for listening to another episode of the No Referees Podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to this show, and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on social media @NoRefereesPod. Till the next episode, we out.